Oh, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवागं सस्तनूभिः व्यसेमदेवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धस्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्तिः 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 It means that whatever is there in us, to bring it out is called invocation. Puja Gurudev will tell, invocation is not begging. Begging, we beg. Suppose I have something I don't have, then I want to get it from outside, then I beg. The in the in the begging, we are trying to get something from outside. But invocation is, which is already there within us, to bring it out is called invocation. And before trying to understand what the scripture is telling, we should bring the best in us. The mind has to be in the best condition. Then only the knowledge will take root. You must have noticed that we listen to scriptures for years and years, but nothing happens because we keep our mind in the weakest condition: anger, greed, jealousy, fear, anxieties, worries. With these things, we, we, we really keep the mind in these conditions all the time. That's why it is not in the best state. Like love, compassion, those things don't come from outside. Nobody can give love from outside. Nobody can give compassion. Generally, we demand that from outside. But love, compassion, forgiveness, these things come from inside. Fearlessness, they come from inside. So one has to invoke. If one is always invoking that fearlessness, one is invoking that love all the time, then only uh, mm, it will be available to a person when it is needed. So invocation mantra is extremely important before going to the proper text, because the student and teacher is listening by telling and the student is listening by listening, by hearing to the teacher. Both are doing the same thing. When the teacher is really teaching to himself. When the student is learning, he is learning for himself, not for anything else, not for to get a degree or anything. That's why the intention is completely selfless. There is no ulterior motive. how to make ourselves better, how to recognize the divine within ourselves. That's why Shanti Mantra in the beginning is of utmost importance. Then let us go to the text. In this text, on the first day, we discussed that there are 12 slokas are there, actually 12 mantras. This is the smallest Upanishad. This Mandika Upanishad is the smallest one, only 12 mantras. But Gaudapadacharya has written Karika on this one, and he has written 4 chapters of Karika on the 12 mantras. Then Bhagavan Shankaracharya has written commentary on the Karika. So this becomes like a big text, but actually it is the smallest text. The first chapter, always when we read Mandika Upanishad, always we read with Karika, because Karika makes it very clear, and then commentary makes it clearer. That's why that is needed. The first chapter of Mandukya Karika is called the Agama Prakarana. Agama Prakarana. And this Agama Prakarana, the 12 slokas of Mandika Upanishad plus other slokas are also there, and there is 29 mantras are there in the Agama Prakarana. That means 12 which belongs to Mandukya Upanishad, and then 17 belongs to the Karika. That means Karika and Mandukya Upanishad both are there in the Agama Prakarana. But in the chapter 2 is called the Vaitakhya Prakarana. Only there are Karikas. There is no Upanishad of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is not there. It is only Karika. And there are 38 verses are there. Then chapter 3 is called the Advaita Prakarana, only Karika. There, because 12 slokas which really constitute the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is only in the first chapter. All of the chapters are Karikas only. In the third chapter is called Advaita Prakarana. 48 verses are there. And the fourth chapter is called Alasa Shanti, and there are 100 verses. In this way, this book is laid out 4 chapters. Let us go to the proper sloka, the first sloka. It is very interesting how it starts with a bang. All other Upanishads will start with the student, how the student is approaching the teacher. Those methods will be given. Students' qualities, of course, students' qualities will be given in the Prakarana Granthas, but here also in the Upanishads also they are mentioned, and how the teacher's qualities, the student is approaching the teacher, those things are there. But here, all those things are not there. It directly starts. It is the PhD study of philosophy. Then let us go to the text proper, where it is told, Om iti etat aksharam idam sarvam tasya upavyakhyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyat iti sarvam omkara eva yaccha anyat trikalatītam tad api omkara eva. It is Omkar, all Omkar. Our Indiana center is called Omkar, Chinmay Omkar. Here is the Omkar all the time. Om iti etat aksharam idam sarvam. So let us try to understand what this Om is. Om is called actually the Om is made of, it is a compound sound. It is not one sound. It is a compound sound because it is made of 2 vowels and 1 consonant. A, U, and Ma. It is made of 3 letters. A, U, and Ma. A is a vowel, U is a vowel, and Ma is a consonant. These 2 vowels and 1 consonant put together is called Om. Of course, we are telling Om, O-M we write, but actually it is Om. It is like this. Om. But we generally are chanting in our mission Om, but actually it is not Om, it is Om. A is a sound that comes from the gutter. There are 5 kinds of sounds. Depending on the origin of the sounds are divided into 5 categories: gutturals, palatals, linguals, dentals, and labials. There are 5. The A is a guttural sound because it comes directly from the throat. We don't use the tongue to pronounce A. In the same way, the O is chanted without the help of the tongue. And Ma also, we don't need the help of the tongue. All other sounds are chanted with the help of the tongue. That means if a person has no tongue, if you cut the tongue, still this person can chant this A, O, and Ma. And these are called the primordial sound or universal sound. That in the nature it is inherent, this sound. And all of the sounds, whatever we are making, like a dog or cat or any other letter, it is by using the tongue. The tongue touches different parts of the palate, upper palate. As a result, these words are pronounced. Like ka. Ka, ka comes from the throat, but other time, but the guttural sound. But when you tell pa, we use the labial sound. It is a labial sound. So that means when you tell ta, tha, at the time you are using the tongue. But we don't use the tongue at all. If tongue is not there, also one can pronounce. So these are very pure sound. It is not manipulated sound. It is a pure sound because tongue is not used at all. And this sound is inherent in the nature. And when a person is meditating and one person becomes still in his own swarupa, then this sound will be noticed. The sound is a natural sound. It is not a created sound. It is a natural sound. All of the sounds are created. It is natural sound. So like for example, if you take a conch, why conch is worshipped? Because if you keep near that conch near the ear, you will hear the sound Om. You can hear. That's why people, they use the conch. It is a holy thing. They use that one for God and all those things. But mainly, the Om is not a created sound. It is a natural sound, and all other sounds, whatever is made in the sounds, this A, U, and Ma is there. Like how it is told, every object has a name. Every object has a name. Let us say stone. Stone is an object. Also, it has a name. Stone is a name, and it refers to an object for stone. Now, this object, the name is made of letters. Stone, S-T-O-N-E, letters. But Om, when we are telling Om, the A starts from the gutter and Ma is from the lips. That means the entire band of letters, they're pronounced between the throat and the lips. And when we chant A, at the time we make the mouth wider. O, little we close it. Then at the time we completely close it, and it is chanted in the lips, the closure. But all other sounds are where the tongue has to touch different parts of the upper palate. These letters combine together to form words. Without letters, there will be no name. Any name is made of letters. It is a noun. Name is a noun. So A, U, and Ma, though it is told 3 letters, but actually it consists of all the letters in the entire world, whether it is Tamil, whether it is Telugu, whether it is English, whether it is whatever language, in all the languages, all the letters are included in Om. And these letters combine together to form words. And words always refer to some object. There is no object without a word, without a name. That's why when a child is born, immediately we have to give a name. Otherwise, we will not know. We cannot describe the child. So to tell child also, it is a word. So Om includes not only all the letters, it includes all the words also. All the words means all the forms. All the letters, all the names, and all the forms. are included in Om. For that reason, in the beginning of the class, we chant 3 times Om. Do you know why? It has got a lot of significance. Because when we are chanting Om, it really includes Omkara Tasya Vachakah. It is told Omkara Tasya Vachakah. That means Om refers to him, to the Lord. It is Vachakah. It signifies the Lord. So when we are chanting Om, Krishna, Rama, Govinda, Gopala, Christ, Allah, everybody is there because all the names are included in Om. We are not excluding anything. Our Ishtadevata, their Ishtadevata, his Ishtadevata, her Ishtadevata, everybody is included in Om. And you will see that Taittiriya Upanishad, there is one section is entirely dedicated to Om Upasana. They don't tell Rama, Krishna, all those things, they don't tell. Like how I tell Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayana. They will chant Om. Will chant Om. And there are in the medical science, they tell in the if suppose somebody is mentally a lot of anger is there, a lot of fear is there, a lot of anxiety is there. If one is chanting Om regularly, even for 15 minutes, then one will free from that because it brings alignment. Like whenever suppose there is a piece of iron and we take a magnet, iron has no capacity to attract the iron filings. It doesn't have the capacity. But if we rub a magnet on the iron in one direction, then after some time that piece of iron will work exactly like the magnet. It will be very powerful. So by chanting Om, our body comes back to its natural state. Natural state. And from this, from Om, they tell that entire universe has come from the Om. And in the Bible also it is told, it is that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was the with God, and Word was God. And they tell also this entire universe has come from Om. Now there are Om is a sound. Okay, Om is a sound. Even the children, if they are like they have attention deficiency problem, if they're chanting Om, then that will go away. It has got a lot of benefit, but we are not going to that aspect of that is not our point of discussion. Mainly, what really Om is. Why Om is mentioned in the beginning of such a great Upanishad? We chant Om very casually, but why it is given at the beginning of the text? The all the sounds, let us can be divided into 4 categories. The sounds. Of course, Om is a sound. It is called the sound symbol of the Supreme Lord. But let us discuss what sound is. Sound is of 4 categories. One is called the para. Para means you must have read in the Kindle Life. There is a Spotavad. There is toward the end when Gayatri Mantra, there in that portion, Puja Gurudev has mentioned in a Spotavad that will come in this sound. Para is the highest form of sound, the undifferentiated sound, which is the cause for the end. All the words have come from sound. In the beginning, this world, all the words, whatever we see, was in the form of sound only. Okay, at that time it was called para. There was no differences. It was very on in the condition of unmanifest. Like when we tell mango, mango, it came from within ourselves. In the mind, it is recognized. Before that, it is in the causal state. Mind is in the subtle state, and in the causal state, in the vasana, then it was with the Lord. At that time, it is called para. At that, when the sound is with God, it has come from God only. When it is with God, at that time there is no difference in sound. There is no table, there is no chair. It is all one sound, cosmic sound. It is one cosmic sound. And and that vibration, they call it, it has come from Parame Byoman. That means from the supreme space, this undifferentiated sound has come. At that time, when there is no division in the sound, when there are no different types of sound, at that time you call it para. That condition of the sound is called para, undifferentiated sound. One cannot know what is stable, what is, those things are not there. Only one sound. then called Pashyanti. Pashyanti means the the sound which is seen. Pashyanti. Pashyanti means to see. That when that sound manifested at the Vasana level, and if one is meditating, one is taking one's consciousness from the gross to subtle, subtle to causal, then the revelation happens. Revelation. In the everything is in the Vasana state, in the causal state. Everything is there in this world. Some people will see that they don't really like for us to gain knowledge. We have to use our intellect. We have to perceive things, but they can tell regarding anything because they have touched that causal state. Causal state, everything is there, but they can see it. They now we have to hear something, we have to discuss something, but they can see clearly. That is the Pashyanti. At the time the sound is seen, not heard, seen. Pashyanti. Then Madhyama. Madhyama means when the sound is perceived in the subtle state. Subtle state means in the mind. That is the spota. Before we tell a word, first it is created in the mind. Any word is created in the mind. And that time we cannot hear. Of course, we can hear, others cannot hear. That sound is there in the mind, and we call it Madhyama. And that means the thought form of the sound is called Madhyama. And Vaikhari is the grossest manifestation of sound. When the sound is manifest, the spoken words, they are called Vaikhari. That means it has come from the Vasana to the mind, from the mind to the tongue, and then from the tongue to the lips. Then it has gone through so many things. It has now grossified. That grossified sound, that gross sound, which one can talk, which one can hear, that is called the Vaikhari. These are the different forms of sound. But Om is the para, is the para. That means it is with God. Pujya Gurudev will tell that Om is the sound symbol of God. It is a symbol. Om is a symbol. Symbol of whom? Of the Supreme. Generally, we use two types of symbols to denote things. To talk regarding anything in this world, we use two types of symbols. We use symbols only when a thing is not there with us. If it is not there with us, in front of us, then we have to use a sound. For example, I'll tell monkey. Monkey is not here. Then I'm to use the word to tell that monkey. If somebody asks what a monkey is, then I am to tell through words. And I'll tell it has a tail, it has got four legs, then it has got eyes, everything I am to describe. And that kind of talking is called sound painting or sound symbol. Sound symbol. Because it is not there with me at this moment. But sometimes we don't talk, but we show. If a monkey, then we draw a picture, then we show that this is a monkey. If it is a good painter, otherwise you have to write below that is a monkey, otherwise nobody will know whether it is a monkey or donkey. So now that is called a pictorial symbol. There's something called sound symbol and something called pictorial symbol. When I tell dad, if I am telling to the mouth, then it is a sound symbol. But if I'm showing the picture, I'm showing the picture of my dad, then it is called a pictorial symbol. There are two types of symbols. In the temple and in our puja room or in our house, God nobody can see. And where he is, nobody knows. Then we have to use symbols. There is no other way. Because symbols are used only when something we cannot see directly or we cannot show to anybody. At the time we use symbols. Otherwise there is no need of symbols. In the traffic, that all the symbols are used. You know how useful it is. And it is, nobody has to stand there. If somebody has to stand and tell that, okay, go left, go right, like how in India, the traffic police will be standing there and the trucks, the Swardaji will be taking trucks and this traffic man will ask for bribe. So you know what they do? They will just stop in the middle of the road, the truck. And there are so many, all other vehicles that will traffic. And then this traffic person cannot bargain with him. Then they will give some 1 rupee or 2 rupees. Then, but of course, now everything is changing. But it is the A person is standing there. But if there is symbol, then that symbol does much better work. It will not take bribe. It will not take bribe. It does not. That's why we are using symbols everywhere, whether it's a bathroom, whether it's a traffic sign, whether it's in our home, whether it is food, where to sit, everything. A symbol is there. So that is very much used. But Om is a sound symbol. It is not a pictorial symbol. It is not a picture. It is a sound symbol. And it represents the Supreme Lord. And when I am telling Om, suppose we go to a Christian person, in Christianity they will not understand what Krishna is because they have never heard. But in the Hinduism, we will not know what Christ is. But when I tell you Om, everything is automatically included in that one because it is made of all the letters, all the alphabets, and all the words, and all the objects, all the names, all the forms are included in Om. So when we are chanting Om in the beginning of the class, we bow down to all the devatas, all the deities, all the Mahatmas, all the people whom we see, whom we don't see, who are present, who are not present, or who have already left this earth, or all the objects that thought we bring to the mind. That's why we chant Om. One should not chant Om, Om, Om. One should make it long. Om is Aum. That one has to remember because you are habituated to Om, so it is little difficult. But actually, it is Aum, and it is not only in Hinduism. In everywhere, this Om is used. Even in Islam, they call it Amin. Amin, they tell, and remove the N. Is there. And in Christianity, Amin. What is in Amen? They tell Amen, and in America we tell Amen or something. We tell it is so everywhere. This use is there because that is a natural sound. With this much, let us go to the what the sloka is telling. Omiti. Om means the sound, the which represents the supreme reality. Omiti etat aksharam. Etat means this. This akshara. Akshara means perishable. Akshara is imperishable. This imperishable Lord, in which will never perish. Because of that, all the wise people they invest in which will not perish at all. A person is called worldly person or a samsari who invests everything on perishable things, which will perish tomorrow, which will not stay tomorrow as it is today, or which will not stay next second as it is at this moment. That is a world person. World person always invests and works for that which will go away one day. But a wise person will always invest which will never go away at all, which will always be there. That's why when a person, a sansari person, works at the end, that person will work a lot, but at the end, disappointment comes because one has to lose everything. One cannot take a single thing from this earth. What one has collected, this entire life, that will just stay here. And you must have heard, I have told many times this story because we hear from Guruji. It is regarding Guru Nanak Ji. Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak is Sikh Guru. Then one person, his name was Dhanik Lal. Dhanik Lal means he was a very rich person. Dhanik Lal, he was a great devotee of Guru Nanak Ji. But he has no time to go to the ashram and chant Sabad or to chant God's name. He had no time. Always he will be doing business and he will count money. Every day he will count money. All the time the thumb will go to the tongue and then he will count from the morning till evening. And he was a very rich man. And he was very proud of that. He is very successful. And every time he earns $1 million, he will put a flag on his house. Now already he has got 19 flags because he has got 19 millions now. But he's really working for the 20 millions. And he is doing and doing and doing, and sometimes business is going up, sometimes it's going down, and it took a lot of time. Just like how that in that ladder and snake game, up to 98 it is easy to go. But from 98 to go to 100, we see that always will get that one. Always it will fall. As a result, that that bid has to come to the first place or the starting point. So we go up to 98 easily, but from the 98 we come so quickly to the bottom. And somehow psychological, because we think that I don't think that I can reach 100, and really that happens. So this Dhanik Lal was not able to reach. It took long time how to go from 19 to 20 million. But one day he reached 20 million. And he put a flag on now there are 20 flags are there on his house. And he called the newspaper people and everybody took a picture and they told, how could you make 20 millions for us? Even 1,000 rupees at that time, okay? 1,000 rupees is such a struggle. And you have 20 millions, how can you do that? How success? And they interviewed and he was very proud of himself. His name came in all the newspapers, his picture is everywhere. Everybody saying Dhanik Lal, Dhanik Lal. They are going near his house and they're taking pictures because he's the only person who has a $20 million, 20 million rupees. Now, he wanted to give this good news to Guru Nanak because he's a devotee of Nanak. He has never gone. For the first time, he went after making 20 million. He was busy in making that 20 million. Now he's a little relaxed and he went to Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak Ji told Dhanik Lal, what's the matter? Oh Guru, 20 million ho gaya. By your grace, 20 million is already achieved. Then Guru Nanak saw that he's a really good person, but all the time money, 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 nothing else. He gets up, he dreams money, he chants money, he counts money, and he cannot see anything else. So Guru Nanak, this person is, what will happen to him? So but he cannot tell because he has really worked very hard. So we told Dhanik Lal, that is a great thing you have achieved, but can you do one favor to me? Oh Guru, anything, I can do anything for you. What is the work? Now please take this needle. He had a needle with him and he gave that needle to Dhanik Lal. And Dhanik Lal, what shall I do? I don't know how to stitch or I don't know how to put buttons or something. What shall I do? Now, you give this, you hand over this needle to me in the heaven. Oh, then he was very happy. There are so many people were there. Guru Nanak Ji didn't give any responsibility to any other devotee, but he gave responsibility to Dhanik Lal. Dhanik Lal was very excited. His leg is not touching the ground. And he was so happy for the first time. He is so happy. Then he came home and his wife has never seen him so ecstatic and asked, what is the problem with you? Because if somebody is too happy, we tell that he has a problem. That is the way. If one is sad, that means one is normal. Because we want people to be sad all the time. Then his wife, when he asked that, why you are so happy, what happened? And you know, now what? Now Guru Nanak gave me work. What is the work? Now he gave me this needle. What shall you do with the needle? What will you do? Now I will return him in the heaven. And his wife, Indian wife, they are very smart. He has not studied that much, but a lot of intelligence. Then she told her, oh, husband, dear husband, can you take this body while going to heaven? If at all you go to heaven, there is no guarantee that one will go to heaven. If at all you will go to heaven, then can you take this body? Then no, I cannot take. Then if the body cannot be taken, where you will hold this needle? How can you hold this needle? How will take and give him? He understood because sometimes he listened to, actually people don't listen to their wives, but he's the first person who listened to his wife. And then because he's telling something sense. Now, then he understood that he is now trapped. Guru Nanak has tricked him. He cannot take so he came running with the needle and fell at the feet of Guru Nanak Ji. Oh Guru, I am very sorry. What happened? I cannot give back this needle. Why? No, I cannot take this body. Then I'm going to give you this needle. Then what about your 20 million rupees? And he got the message that I cannot take a single thing. From that day, you know what he did? He donated everything to Guru Nanak's organization. He became the disciple. Okay. he did something good. Actually, he earned and he gave to the. So this is the um, like when a person is too much attached, um, too much attached to things, that person cannot understand the subtle things in life at all. That person will always gross things one will give importance, not subtle things. But akshara is that when one is giving importance to the that which is doesn't perish. Like when we see a person, the hair will change, the color will change, it will fall off, the eyesight will change, the smoothness of the skin will change, the behavior will change, the thinking will change, the memory will change, everything is changing, and our attention is on the changing things. One time we'll tell, oh, it is great. He has got a great memory power. He has got a lot of intellectual ability. Oh, his body looks so fantastic, and he walks like that. He walks like this. We'll tell all these things, but they change. When they change, our understanding regarding the person completely changes. That's why our relationships, they don't last. Our relationships become so diluted because we have related ourselves to something changing and we want something permanent. From ephemeral thing, we are expecting the eternal. That is our issue. That's why we are sad. But ephemeral thing can only give ephemeral thing. Impermanent things can only give something which is changing. They cannot give which is changeless. They cannot give which is all the time there. Om iti aksharam. But a wise person always gives importance, always sees, is there anything which doesn't change in the person? I want to relate with that person. Like Mirabai. Mirabai was not marrying to the body. Mirabai married to Lord Sri Krishna. And you have heard regarding Ma Anandamai and his recent saint, Ma Anandamai. And Puja Gurudev will always mention whenever anybody asks, is there any realized master in this world? Always Gurudev has gone so many times to Anandamai's ashram. In I think Pune, their ashram is. So always he will mention regarding Ma Anandamai. Ma Anandamai, the story is, it is not it's not that old story. She was the youngest in the family. So all the daughter-in-laws, and they're a big family, they will, since she was the youngest one, everyone will cook together. It was joint family. At the end, all the utensils are to be cleaned by Ma Anandamai. In her previous name, I don't know what the previous name was. Then, but she will never complain. She will do all the work. Because of that, there is fungus in her hands because all the time water, it doesn't dry at all. So it will be all white, white, white. But he has never complained. Why all of you are giving, everybody is eating and all the cleaning, why let us not do together? He will never complain. But at night, it will be night 12 o'clock or something. By the time everybody eats, everything is clean. But at the end, she will go and meditate. She will not sleep without meditating. As a result, her husband thought that she is like a mad person. She is not fit for the worldly life at all. She is something mad. She has gone crazy. And anyhow, to make the long story short, she was removed from the home. She was blamed that she is a mad person. She doesn't. He's not a human being. Something crazy things she is doing. Then she was removed. But at Ma Anandamai, always she will consider herself as the not the body, always as the Atma from the beginning itself. Beginning itself. Like we try to maintain relationship with the physical body. That's why we look the characteristics of the body, but that will be cheated after some days. But akshara means what is imperishable. In this world, everything is perishing. Name is changing, form is changing, the situation are changing. Is there anything permanent? Like how this virus thing, it changed within 2 3 months. Everything is changed. To change this world, only 2 months took. One day it took. Everything is changed. And to come back to the previous way of living, it will take time. Now people have so much doubt. That means world changes so fast. We think that it will change very slowly. Our body, at least, is changing, taking some time to change, but it can change in no time. But in all the changes, there is something which doesn't change at all. Because for a change to happen, something changeless has to be there, and that is the Akshara. And Om represents that Aksharam. And what this Akshara is? Idam Sarvam. Idam, in our scripture, when the word Aham is used, that refers to the subjective person. Idam is the objective world. Idam refers to the objective world. Om iti etat aksharam idam. Idam sarvam. All this, the Guru must be showing like this entire universe, whatever we see and whatever you don't see, whatever you can perceive, whatever you cannot perceive, whatever you can hear, what you cannot hear, or whatever you have forgotten, or whatever you can taste, what you cannot taste, whatever you can touch, what you cannot touch, everything, all these things, all this, idam sarvam, nothing is left. When by adding the pronoun sarvam, sarvam is everything is included, not only what we perceive, whatever we cannot perceive, or to what we have perceived some days, but now we cannot perceive, or what we have not yet perceived, everything is included in the word sarvam, idam sarvam. That means from the beginning, the Upanishadkar is telling that that Akshara is this Kshara. Kshara is this world. Perishable is the world. That imperishable Lord is only in the form of this perishable world. There is no difference between the perishable and imperishable. That he has made it very clear. Like people tell that spiritual life is different from worldly life. The people tell, and they have got Swamiji. You are telling the spiritual things, but we are in the world. But they think that spiritual life and worldly life, they are two different things. But only there is one life. There is life alone is there. They're not spiritual or worldly. It's only one life. That's all. We just create a division. But that is removed here from the beginning. That world is non-different from the Lord. Lord himself is in the form of this world. So if how much respect we'll have for the Lord when we go to temple, we consider that Lord is there in the form of the murti. If we don't see that when you come to the world, in the murti we see the Lord, but we see another form we don't see, then it is a big loss. That's why Puja Gurudev will tell, we are interested in worshipping man-made idols, but we are not interested in worshipping God-made idols. All the living beings are God-made idols, but we are not able to see there. But in the murti, we can see very clearly. I don't know at the time what vision we get. There we can see, but in the people we cannot see. In the dog we cannot see. And I think I was telling you the story. It was told by Swami Shivananda. How to see God in 5 days. He has written a book, How to See God in 5 days. And one of the stories, that one person, he wanted to see God badly. So, and he prayed to, oh Lord, I want to see you, I want to see you, I want to see you. And it was so intense. In the dream, one day, God came and told him, okay, I will come tomorrow. You appear to be a sincere person. I will come and visit you, and you can see me. Then this person, when he got up, he was so happy. From the dream, when he came out, he was so happy. He took off from his work, and then he waited the whole day, because God will come. He didn't want to miss that one. And instead of God, he saw that in the day nobody came except a dog. God didn't come, but a dog came. And when this person is so angry because now he lost the salary for that day and he's staying at home, he got so mad, he took a stick and started hitting that dog. Somehow that dog escaped, leg is broken, and he escaped. And he was angry. That day he went to sleep. In the dream, Lord came and he got so angry on Lord that what kind of God you are? You just bluffed me that you will come today and tomorrow, and I took off from the work and I lost the salary, and you didn't come at all. Then he said, I came, but you started beating me. I cannot come in the infinite form because there is no infinite form. For me, all the forms are finite. So I came in the finite form, but you thought it is a dog and you started beating. I went to save my life. I just ran away. Oh Lord, I am very sorry. Can you come tomorrow? Oh yes, I will come tomorrow. The next day also he was waiting, and Next day, instead of dog, a cow came, the neighbor's cow. And again he was mad, and he started, and that cow started grazing the spinach which he had grown in his backyard. And he got so upset because he has got attachment to the spinach bed. So he got very upset and he started beating. But the cow was very strong. It jumped the fence and went away. Then he was, I think this God is just bluffing. He is a cheat. Everybody tells that he is the honesty, the embodiment of honesty, but actually he is a cheat. And he, with anger, he went to sleep. And again in the dream, he dreamt God. God came and told, "Do you know, I came yesterday. When did you come? You didn't come at all. I came in the form of cow. In the form of cow you came? Yes, but it's a neighbor's cow. Because he didn't like the neighbor's cow. He didn't like the neighbor, so he didn't like the neighbor's cow. So that's why he started hitting that cow. See, we cannot see God at all. God is just in front of us, by the side of us, and in to the left side, to the right side, to the front, to the back. But we don't see God in them. We see God only in, we have to go to Kashi and Mathura and Vrindavan, or to all the way to Mansavar to see Him. And that is our problem. But how it, that is that kind of, it is not given in our scripture. All the things what we do is not told that way. It is not that God is not there in the inert form. He is there. At the same time, He is there in the living forms too. He is there in a beggar. He is there in a person, wealthy person. He is there in a diseased person. He is there in the form of a healthy person. He is there in everybody. He is there in the form of man. He is in the form of woman. He is in the form of human beings. He is in the form of animals too. He is in the form of a tree. He is in the form of a stone. If we understand God, then we'll see Him every moment. He is everywhere. Whatever we see, whatever we touch, oh God, you are there. I bow down to you. Again, the hands through which we bow down, that also God is. So who is the ego who is making the hands to bow down? That also God. Om iti etat aksharam. So God is something to be understood. God is not something to be seen or something to be touched. God is something which is to be understood. Then He is everywhere. Om iti etat aksharam idam. Idam sarvam. Tasya, and actually you must have heard the story of Namadeva. Namadeva actually has seen God. Because the story goes that when his dad, they're very poor people. He's a Maharashtrian Saint Namdeva. His dad had gone to some relative's home, and he told to Namdeva that every day you take whatever we cook and offer to the Lord Sri Krishna in the temple as Naivedya, then bring that home and everybody will partake that as prasad. And dad went to some relative's home. So Namdev was taking, he was a small child. He was taking the food, mom will cook food, he will take to the temple and he will tell that, my dad has told that it is for you, but nobody comes and takes the food. But this child believes that no, Lord takes. And he sat there and he started crying. My dad has told, otherwise he will get upset. He has told, please take, please take, please take. From that murti, Lord came and took the Naivedya. So when he returned home, he is coming with an empty pot. And his mom told her, where is the food? The food Lord Krishna took. You told to give to Lord Sri Krishna. And the mom told her, what? I think he has gone crazy. Lord doesn't take. Lord doesn't take. He takes in a subtle form. He doesn't take the gross thing. He said, no, he took. The next day was the same thing. Dad came back after 4 days. Then he asked, now everybody is lost like 10 to 20 pounds they have lost because they are not eating. They're only drinking water. Then dad asked, are you taking the food every day and offering to Lord? He said, yes. And Lord is taking. What is that? Can you tell again? What did you tell? Now Lord is taking every day. And he got so angry, he gave a big slap to the child, to Namdeva. He said, no, he's taking. He didn't boast from that at all. At the end, the dad and son, both of them, they went to temple and they offered. But then nobody came from the murti and took the food, to take the food. Only they heard a sound that, beta, your heart is very clean. That's why you could able to see me. but your dad, he has got a lot of doubts. He doesn't believe that I am there inside this murti. Okay, that's why he cannot see. Same Namdev who has talked to God, who has given food to God, it happened one day, then he grew up and he became a great saint. One day he was going through the forest, he was not staying at home, from place to place he was going through forest, and there was a temple, Lord Shiva's temple in that forest. So at night he was going to take rest there, and when he went to temple, he saw one very old man, completely so weak, he has kept his leg on the Shiva Linga and sleeping there. Then Namdev didn't like that at all. He told it is sacrilege, it is sin to keep the leg on the god. Then he told that sadhu that can you remove your leg, that old man. He didn't know that he is a sadhu. That can you remove the leg? He didn't reply at all. Then he told loudly, can you remove your leg? Then the sadhu told that it looks like you are very angry, but I'm so weak. I cannot lift my leg and take to another place. You are very young and you are strong. Please, can you kindly keep the leg where there is no Shivalinga? Then he lifted his leg and threw to the other side, to one side. Then there another Shivalinga came. Then he threw to a different place. Wherever he was changing his leg, there a Shivalinga was coming. And he got so exhausted, so tired. And then he fell at his feet and understood that he is not an ordinary person. Ordinary person. This is the way how he has seen God, but he has not understood that God is everywhere. He has not understood. Arjuna has seen God only. He has played with the Lord Sri Krishna, but he didn't understand that he is everywhere. That's why God has to show him the Vishwarupa, that he is in the form of everything. Om iti etat aksharam idam sarvam. It is a big statement that itself takes care of everything, all our sadhana, all our how we'll behave in the world. We discriminate people based upon the caste, color, religion, gender, look. We discriminate, but all these things only one sentence in that everything is just removed. So everything is removed. Om iti etat aksharam idam sarvam tasya upavyakhyanam. Upavyakhyanam means clear exposition. The exposition of this Om will be given later. That's why he is telling Tasya Upavakshanam. And in this sloka it starts, what is that? What is the exposition? What is the description regarding that Om, which is Akshara and which is in the form of this entire universe of changing world? Bhutam Bhavishyat, Bhutam Bhavat Bhavishyat iti. Then he is telling not only this entire universe is this Om, even the time, Bhutam. Bhutam means the past. The past, Bhavat is present, and Bhavisya, the future is also he. Not only he is the material object, he is also the time. Actually, time and object both are related. Time and space, they are related. There is no concept of time without space. There is no space without time. So he told that all the concept of time is also he. Bhutam, Bhavat, Bhavishyatcha iti Sarvam Omkareva. All the things are Om. The Sthavara and Asthavara world is Om, and also the past, present, and future is also Om. Time is also God. For that reason, the Puja Gurudev will tell, worshipping time means following the time. Worshipping time is following the time. If one has respect for time, that always Gurudev will tell, Puja Gurudev will tell, you know, my worship is through this lecture. I don't sit when everybody is coming to listen to the lecture, so I want to come in the time and finish in time, because through that only I am worshipping God, because time is God. Time is wasted, time is gone. These three things, if one it is gone, it doesn't come back. It doesn't come back. So the time, those people who are successful, you will see that how they use time. Of course, they use for the worldly gains, but time itself is, God is in the form of time. The concept of time is not possible without him. Bhutam Bhavat Bhavishyat. Then what is time? Let us try to analyze. We tell three things: the past, present, and future. But actually, all these divisions are created by us. There is nothing called past, there is nothing called future, there is nothing called present. There is nothing called present, the present time. But when past had happened, at that time it didn't happen as the present. It didn't happen. Past never happened as present. Past happened as present. When it happened as present only. And when future will happen, future will not come as future. Future will also be the present only. And now the present is there. So present is the reality of the past and future. Without present, there is no past, there is no future. Past is just a word we are telling. With respect to the present moment, we are telling that, okay, that was past. Actually, nobody can go to the past. One can think of the past, but one cannot go to the past because there is nothing called past. It is our mental creation. Even the present, what we tell present, it is very difficult to pinpoint. This is the present moment. Suppose we will tell 8:01 is the present moment. By the time we tell, it is already changed. Present moment, nobody can tell what is present moment. Like when people tell that, okay, at this moment the child was born, but actually child is born much before. Actually, 10 months before the child is already there in the mother's womb. And even before the child came out, also it is there. So when is the birthday? Only when we see the head, that is the birth time, or when the completely comes out, we just have to tell some time. That's all, because nobody can tell the exact time. Nobody can tell. But this idea of past, future, and present is possible only because of the presence. Presence is there. That's why present is possible. That's why future is possible. That's why past is possible. Without presence, there is no present, past, and future. So the reality, the truth of the past, present, and future is the presence. And Pujya Gurudev has told how the concept of time was created. The concept of time is not possible if there is no event. If there is no event, there is no time. And then what is time? Time is the interval between two events. Two events have to happen, then only the concept of time will come. If only one event has happened and that alone, and there is nothing else has happened, then one will not know time. And again, to go a little deeper, Pujya Gurudev has clarified that the interval between two thoughts is called the time. The interval between two thoughts. When the first thought arose in the total mind, at that time there is no time. But when the second thought arose, then only the concept of time came. That's why the unit of time is called second. Unit of time is not fast. That way Pujya Gurudev has explained. That means to know what time is, events have to happen. Otherwise, that's why some people they don't know how to pass time. You know why people are bored at home? They don't know how to pass time because they're not able to do 100 things. That means they have to do different events have to be done so that they will feel that life is going. Life itself, they understand life in terms of activities. If life is nothing is happening, then they'll feel bored because they think that their life is useless. Because nothing is happening. I'm so bored. They cannot handle themselves. They want some activities to be done. They feel comfortable. But that is okay. But main thing, if the presence is not there, events are not possible. When a person is very sad, there are more thoughts. When a person is happy, there are less number of thoughts. There are more thoughts means there are more gaps. First thought, second thought, gap. Second thought, third thought, gap. So more the gap if there are more thoughts. So at that time one will feel more time. That's why when one is in a depressed condition, one will feel that time is not going at all. It looks like 1 second will appear as 1 hour. One day will appear as 1 month because one is not in a good state of mind. But if one is happy, there are less number of thoughts, so less number of intervals. So the time one will not feel that much. Time just passes. When we are going through a happy situation, time flies. And when we are going through a rough patch, At that time, time crawls. These are the statements we hear. So that means time is our creation. There are two types of time. One type of time is we measure in the watch, in the clock. That is called the um, um, that is clock time. I will tell you what is the word they use. But there is another time which is that is called chronological time. The time which is measured in the clock is called chronological time, and that is same everywhere. That is same everywhere. 4 o'clock means 4 o'clock, same everywhere. But the other time is called psychological time. Psychological time differs from person to person. When one is in a sad condition, the psychological time is bigger, is more. But when he was in a happy mood, then psychological time is very less. Time is very less at that time. Though one has stayed in one place for so many years, then we'll do okay. I feel as if I have come yesterday. And how many years married? Swamiji, 30 years I am married. 30 years. That means 30 years it looks like aeons. But if the marriage has gone really well, then we'll do Swamiji will feel that I was if I had married yesterday. Because everything has gone well. Otherwise, one will feel sometimes the children they tell that, oh, we feel old. How will you feel old? Because things are not going okay in their life. Nothing is pleasant. Everything is struggle, struggle, struggle. Then it looks like it is taking a lot of time. So the past, present, and future are the times that is created by our ego in the mind. The mind, in the mind only the concept of time is created because thoughts are in the mind. Bhutam, and there is always time is known because it moves in cycle. Time always moves in the cycle. Like for example, the earth rotates, then it becomes one day. Around its own axis becomes one day. The moon goes around the earth, then it becomes 1 month. And the earth goes around the sun, then it becomes 1 year. So the concept of time is because of the cyclical movement. If there is no cycle, there will be no time. Always it is known because it moves in cycle. It always repeats. Time always repeats. Bhutam bhavat bhavishyat iti sarvam onkara eva. Then one will tell that okay, this time is only is om, and the manifested word is also the om. But what about, is there anything beyond time and beyond this world? Of course, beyond this world, it was told is aksharam. That was told. Is there anything beyond time? Yes. Yacha anyat trikala tadapi omkareva. And whatever the time is in om, om represents the time. Also, it is beyond time. Trikala titam. It is beyond time. That's why if one is always meditating on the self, then one will not know the idea of time, like how we feel old and we feel I'm going to die, or it is so many days it is taking. But if one is meditating every day, then one will not have the concept of time. One will not feel old at all. Though body will have its own aging, it will go through the age, but one will not feel that I'm old. I'm not feeling, oh, how many days? I don't know how many days it will go. One will have not that kind of idea at all. Trikala Titam, because the self is the Om, the truth, which is imperishable, is Trikala Atitam. Tad api Omkareva. That also is Omkara. That means the time is Omkara, what is beyond time is also Omkara, and the Omkara is Akshara, perishable and imperishable, and also is the perishable world. Everything is Omkara. In the first sloka, it's the high dose of philosophy. It will really make a person little shaky. What is this? I was thinking that this world is changing all the time. But now he's saying, no, the Lord is in the form of this world. The world is also changeless. What we perceive is changing, but that changing thing is only appearing as changeless. Sorry. The changeless thing is only appearing as the changing. It is not that there is something called changing. No, changing is only appearance. Appearance. It is not truth. That's why one should not go after the changing things. One should go which is appearing as the changes. one should not go, one should not be a victim of time. One should not give too much importance to time. Give importance to that who is appearing as the time. Then one is in the right path. One will come to know that this life is not a thing that which is one day one is born, then we earn, then we have the family, then one will die. This will not be our autobiography. It is not our journey, is not from the womb to the tomb. It is our journey is only in the eternal. There is nothing called ephemeral at all. Then there is more description is there regarding this Om. We'll just read and we'll try to see the meaning next time. This Mandika Upanishad, generally it is taught at the end. After reading all the Upanishads, then only one comes to Mandika Upanishad. That's why Puja Gurudev, when he was teaching the Mandika Upanishad, immediately after the Upanishad start, there will be some kind of ritual will be there, because people this will grow a little crazy. It will not make any sense. It will not make any sense, because our thoughts are not aligned to that. We are so much accustomed with the changing world, we think that that is the reality, everything changes. But now here it's told, no, this changing world is nothing but that changeless reality. So it creates a lot of uneasiness. So he will do immediately some kind of havan or something. He will do. Generally, it is not done in the mission that much, but he will always do after the Mandukya Upanishad. He will always do. We'll read this sloka, but we'll see the meaning next time. Sarvam hi etat Brahma ayam atma Brahma saha ayam atma chatuspat. This is a Mahavakya. Ayam Atma Brahma is the second Mahavakya. First Mahavakya is Prajnanam Brahma, and second Mahavakya is Ayam Atma Brahma. That is there in this Upanishad, which is there in Samaveda. This Chandogya Upanishad is in the Samaveda. So it is very, it is a Mahavakya. And we'll discuss again the Mahavakya next time. Sarvam hi etat Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma, Saha Ayam Atma Chatuspat. We'll see the meaning of it and description of it the next time. And we'll end here. Thanks for coming and attending the class.